I played in the Australian Open, I think it was 1989 at Royal Melbourne, and Greg Norman was leading the tournament by, 6 shots on Sunday. The wind blew so hard, and the greens were so fast it was blowing the balls off the greens. So Greg Norman comes to the third hole, he hits a putt from below the hole, it goes up, misses the hole, and then turns and comes back farther away than he had originally putted. And you know what he did? He picked the ball up and he just walked off the course. He just quit. He just said, I'm not doing this. He's leading the Australian Open and he just picked it up and he just left. He said, this is just so, I'm not doing this.
Hi, Fred. This is Blaine Porter from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and I play at the Highlands Golf Course. This is Golf Smarter number 904.
We don't need to grow the game, just sustain it with former PGA Tour pro John Erickson.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, John.
Great to be back, Fred.
It's great to have you back. You're always a source of fun.
Yeah, we're gonna have some fun.
It's you fascinate me. You have such a phenomenally interesting perspective on golf and the way it should be played, and on all levels, especially on the professional level, and we'll bounce into that. But you did get to play professionally with some success, correct?
Yeah. I won on the PGA Tour Canada, 1991. I shot 17 under up at Windsor and broke Mo Norman's tournament record there. So that was probably the pinnacle of my professional accomplishments, I'd say. But yeah, I played in 4 Australian Opens, played the tours down there, won a few other smaller events and that sort of thing. So, a little bit of success, I guess. I never won.
Are we talking about
the
Windsor Golf Course in Northern California?
No, Canada. So Windsor, Canada.
Okay.
So we, it was at Roseland. It was a Donald Ross course up there that they used to have. It was a traditional stop on the Canadian Tour. So one of the nice tournaments up there. I always really look forward to that week a lot.
And you grew up around golf. Yeah,
my dad was a 8-time club champion. Great amateur player, and just had me. Apparently there were clubs in my crib when I was born. So, it's not like I had a choice really. It's just this is what you're going to do. Some people are going to be doctors or lawyers. It's like, he's going to be a golfer. I think it kind of kept me out of trouble a little bit, probably in high school, being on the golf team, sort of grounded you a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, sports will do that.
Yeah.
High school sports will do that, hopefully. Yeah. Yeah, because you got to play, it's the etiquette and the presentation, and especially probably when you were in high school, it's a lot different. You had to have a look and an attitude.
Yeah. I mean, golf, when I was growing up in the 1970s in high school, it was a different kind of a sport, right? I mean, the pros were wearing like checkered slacks and stuff or whatever, it wasn't like you're putting on a baseball cap or it wasn't really, this is long before Tiger, right? So it wasn't really a cool sport. You weren't cool. You didn't walk around high school with I'm on the golf team. Yeah. It was like, it was really, you kind of not want people to know, really, really was, baseball, football, basketball. Those are kind of the sports that would kind of get the girls or whatever. Nobody was like, oh, I'm going to go follow the golf team around today or something. It wasn't like that, So
I don't know if they're doing it today either.
Yeah.
So why don't you, what is your feeling about the state of the game today on the pro level? We'll get to the amateur level later.
Well, the state of the game to me hasn't changed in my mind. I still believe that golf should be more of a game than a sport, if that makes sense. I think it's turned into, I think golf's turned into a sport. And if you look at the the golfers now, they all look like linebackers or whatever, and they're super fit and every. I mean, when I was growing up, golf was more of a game. So, and to play the game, if you could hit the ball 235 yards off the tee, you were in the game. You could now be in the game. So you could look at the Pro Tour, and you would have all kinds of short hitters like, Chichi Rodriguez, or, even Lee Trevino wasn't a real long hitter. You had a lot of guys that, if you could knock the ball out there 235 yards, you're in the game. The average tour player was hitting at 250, and the longest hitters were hitting at 270. But with the high spinning ball, the high spinning rubber wound ball, it spun so much more. So the longer you hit it, the more it just went offline on a miss. So a guy that was hitting it 270 was hitting it wild a few times around and causing him to, he or she really, women's tour too, to have bogeys. Very hard to hit it long and straight. So it was almost better to be kind of in that mid range. A guy that hit it 240, 250 off the tee. But now, I'm hearing things like college coaches are saying they won't even recruit a kid unless he can hit it 300. I mean, unless he's hitting it 300 yards, it's won't even get the nod to get recruited. So it's more of I think the sport element, people swinging it at 120, 125 mile an hour swing speeds and this sort of thing. It takes a certain amount of, athleticism to do that. So I think of golf more as a game, and as a great game, a really great game. When growing up, you would see all types of body shapes, right? You would have, let's say, a short and petite, someone like Chichi Rodriguez. I mean, he was what, 5'5", maybe weighed 120 pounds, right? And then you would have someone like George Archer that was 6'6" or something. And, you would have a guy like Bob Murphy, who was just, had a big beer gut, Roger Maltby, Bob Murphy, there were these kind of guys, Craig Stadler, just guys that didn't, they didn't look like they were in great shape. They could get around if you could walk around a golf course, you're in the game. You could get it out there 235 yards, you're in the game. From there, it was all about positioning, angles, playing the game of golf. I'm going to hit it down the left side. I'm going to hit it down the right side. I'm going to, and all that sort of thing. So if you look at the golf courses that were made, most of the great classic tracks, there was a great run of courses made from the 1920s into the 40s. I think most of the great historic tracks in the United States would have been probably Australia as well. I mean, in the UK, you've got the old courses over there, but I think, let's just take the Monterey Peninsula, for instance, right? If you look at those courses, you could not do that now. I mean, you could not, there's no way that in this age, you'd be able to get the funding to buy the Monterey Peninsula and build all those courses on the ocean, yet alone the environmental hurdles and getting permits to build courses on the water and over the cliffs. And it just wouldn't happen. If you look at a city like Los Angeles, okay, one of the most dense metropolitan areas in the world, and you've got Riviera Country Club, Brentwood Country Club, Bel Air Country Club, Los Angeles Country Club North, Los Angeles Country Club South, Hillcrest, Wilshire, Lakeside, Rancho Park. I don't know if I'm forgetting something, but there's 9 golf courses that are taking up 200 acres apiece.
And of those 9 that you mentioned, only one of them is public.
Right.
Rancho Park.
That's right. So, think of the real estate, the valuation of that real estate, and
how little they're paying in taxes.
it just couldn't happen. It just couldn't happen. Right.
No.
So golf they started pushing these courses out to the suburban or rural areas, and we'll build a course out in the desert. We'll bring in a bunch of bulldozers and make some ski slopes down both sides or whatever and call it a golf course, maybe throw some houses around. It's just really different. I think in my mind, golf. All right, let's think of it this way. Let's think about golf as a stick and ball game, right? A stick and a
Sure.
ball. Okay, baseball is a stick and a ball game. Cricket, tennis, really.
Yeah.
Polo. I mean, we could go on and on. There's a lot of stick and ball games. No stick and ball game takes up as much real estate as golf. Not even close.
Right.
I mean, not even
And
close.
I'm pretty sure that no stick and ball game other than golf, the ball is moving on all the other sports.
Yeah, right. But my point is that, do we really need to make the courses bigger? I mean, golf is already taking up, I think it's a minimum 150 acres to make a golf course.
Right.
And that was a classic, 6,800 yard golf course. Do we really need these golf courses to be 7,400 yards, 7,600 yards, to make them longer and bigger and bigger? And we're already taking up so much space in this age of environmentalism that we needed to do this, right? To think about things being more green and sustainable. I just don't see how golf fits into that by trying to say, okay, now the ball's going 15% farther, we need to make the courses bigger. It just doesn't make sense. If you looked at baseball, they're still using a wood bat, right? Nobody's screaming about that. Why aren't people upset about that? But they could have an aluminum or titanium bat. The bat's this big around, but what if they made the bat this big around, and they made it out of titanium, and they made it bigger, and then they changed the ball, the baseball, and they made it out of rubber or whatever, and then shortstops are hitting 200 home runs a year, and they're like, oh, that's not good, and we have to make the stadiums bigger now. I mean, that's what's happened with golf. It just doesn't make any sense.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you have to think, was there anything wrong with golf playing the classic great courses? Let's just take, Pebble Beach, 6,800 yards, on hosting US Open in 72 or whatever. Does it really need to be longer? And then you have to look at the way that the course was designed, the bunkering, the shapes of the greens. It's all based upon the trajectory of the shots, the angles into different pin placements, where the bunkers are off the tees and this sort of thing. To sit there and say, okay, well, now the ball's going to go 50 yards farther and everyone's just going to fly it over these bunkers into some part of the course that never would have been designed for that. It doesn't make any sense from a design standpoint or from the standpoint of a game. But, I think this idea that golf is very hard, and I feel like people are angry at it. Like, it's just, any way they can beat up this game or make, if we can figure out how to hit it farther and take the spin off the ball, we can just beat up these courses and stuff. It's almost like, I feel like there's some kind of like a resentment or something of that the game is just hard and we're going to do everything technology. We're just going to, if humans can't do it, we'll have technology do it. We're going to beat up this game somehow. And I think people are missing the point of the beauty of golf and the design. I just played, I don't play that much anymore. I've only played 2 rounds this year. I played Cypress Point in January. And this last weekend, I just played Richmond Country Club. And
I'm a regular. I have a friend at Richmond, so I get to play it.
Okay, so you know the golf course a little bit.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I do.
Okay, so
I'm not a huge fan, but
well, I'm a huge fan of Richmond Country Club, and I say this because of the positioning, of the bunkering, and the shapes of the greens. Let me give you an example. The 17th hole, the par 4. Okay. There's a bunker on the left off the tee and a bunker off the right off the tee. The bunker off the right is shorter in distance than the bunker on the left. Okay, so that weak right fade goes into that bunker, and if you try and hit a hard draw, it goes into the left bunker because the draws typically go farther than the fades, right? So let's say you're trying to win your club championship and you got 1 shot lead, 2 holes to play, you just par the last 2, you think, let's say you have 2 shot lead with 2 holes to play, you just par in and you're going to win. So what do you do when you come to 17? You could lay up short of those bunkers and hit a 6-iron into the green, okay? Or I could lay up, say, with a 1-iron or 2-iron short of the bunkers. or I could try and hit a driver through the bunkers. I'm going to have to hit a very good drive, keep it in between those bunkers, and then I can come in there with maybe an 8 or 9 iron. You see the risk and reward there? It's just perfect.
Sure.
It's perfect. It's beautiful. I loved how the bunkers were staggered. I mean, and I love the risk and reward. Like, I could just hit 1 iron off the tee and take the bunkers completely out of play. I can't reach them, but I can still get it on the green, easy enough. But I'm going to come in with a 6 iron, not an 8 iron or a 9 iron. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, and to me, hole number 3 at Richmond is a par 3 uphill, and is the hardest par 5 I've ever played.
Yeah, right.
It drives me nuts. Listen, we're going to take a timeout. We'll be back right after this.
Okay.
They're doing a lot of work at Richmond right now, and they're doing great work. But for me, it feels like so many of the holes have different types of grass that it makes it harder to play.
To me, it's a real thinker's course. You know.
I can see.
You have to understand. I'm playing persimmon. I'm hitting it, 250, 260 off the tee. So I'm playing the course as it was designed originally. It feels fairly unmolested out there.
Mm-hmm.
As compared with some of these courses where they've tried to redo them and make them more modern and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
One thing my friend noted, he's a pro from Georgia. He came out to visit me and we played there. He said every hole there's a run-up option on that hole.
Mm-hmm.
There's no forced carries, which I think is great for member golf and, any kind of golf.
Member golf is different, right? You want to make it more challenging because this is the only course these people are playing. So you got to make it tougher, I would think.
There's always a way to run it onto the green.
Yeah.
You don't, a lot of these courses where it's just completely bunkered all the way around and that sort of thing. And even if you have a bunker that sneaks in half the green or side, but you can always kind of feather something in there. You could always run one up. And I think that's a good thing. Alistair McKenzie was pretty good about that. Usually always having a run-up option somewhere.
Yeah. Well, during our break, I got news. Okay, this is totally facetious. I got news that Jay Monahan, because of health issues and the board kind of revolting, he's going to step down from being commissioner of the PGA Tour.
Well, that makes
and
sense.
Your name is on the short list to take his job.
Yeah, right.
So now that you're commissioner of the PGA Tour, what's the first thing you're going to change?
Everything.
Okay, you're hired. Now, what's the first thing you're going to do? Where are you going to start?
Just going to fire everybody and just bring in people that I think would be good to. No, I would just try and get the game. I think what I would do is do everything I could to start a satellite tour of a classic game. I mean, how many different versions of football are there? NFL football.
Actually, there are a couple. Yeah.
Canadian rules.
Yeah. XFL,
indoor arena football, right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
And variations.
They all exist, right?
Right.
None of them are going to be bigger than the NFL, which is fine, but they exist. So I think that like a Persimmon and Blade tour would be great to just exist. If professional women's softball can exist, I don't see any reason why. No, I'm not putting that down. I'm just saying it exists. No. Right. I don't see any reason why you couldn't just have a tour that plays the game as it was relatively intended to be played. I mean, these courses were designed for 250-yard drives. And a lot of these courses are great courses if you look at them from a 250-yard drive standpoint. I mean, you could take a kid that hits it 350 yards and I give him a set of Persimmon and Blades and we go out and play. He might hit it a little farther than I do, but not as much as he thinks. And if they're having to play these courses, place like Richmond Country Club, I don't think people are just going to go out there and shoot 62 or 3 out there.
You're younger than I am, except you're an old timer. right? And as far as golf is concerned, you're an old timer and you're looking at it like, well, it was great the way we had it. It was challenging. It was hard. We didn't need that much space. But all these things that you've listed, are they going to grow the game? Is there a need to grow the game to get more people interested and more people wanting to play than going, this is too damn hard. I can't do this.
I guess I don't really feel there's a need to grow the game.
Ah, okay.
I guess that's maybe the difference. Like grow the game. It's kind of like grow the economy. Do we need to, how about just, it's sustainable? Like, how about I can just go down and buy a loaf of bread for $2? I mean, does everything have to be growing all the time? I feel like growth is just unsustainable. The fishing industry, I'm a fisherman, so I go out and kayak fish. I catch salmon, halibut in the bay or whatever. I mean, do we have to grow the fishing industry that just depletes the bay of all the fish? And, do we need more and more party boats, more commercial fishermen raping the oceans or whatever? I mean, is that the goal? Or is it better just to have it sustainable? Like, why not? Hey, we've got a lot of golf courses. I mean, growing the game to me sounds like longer rounds of golf, more beginners playing, more people hitting it all over the place, slower rounds, hard to get tee times, increasing the price of the rounds because, golf's getting more and more expensive because, you create more and more demand and there's less resources, which means that it's just economics, right? I mean, the prices just go up on stuff. I don't know, growing the game, does it need to grow? Maybe people that are just interested in golf play golf and people that aren't interested in golf don't play golf. I mean,
well, as many times as I've had a chance to talk to Barney Adams, he always reminds us that the PGA Tour is a television show. It's not golf. And they're there to get the advertisers, to let them get their brand messages out there, to get the logos on the most famous players in the world so that they can, increase their brand recognition. And it seems like the USGA growing the game for amateur golfers and getting more people to play the game, and then the PGA Tour to grow the TV show. Are those in conflict with one another? Can they both survive? Can they both be sustainable? The words you use, and should they?
I just think golf is a game. So let's say that you and I go and play chess. We meet down at the coffee house and we're going to play, I used to do that. I had a guy, we'd play chess every week and we'd meet on Sunday afternoons at 2:00 and we play chess. I mean, is it important to grow the game of chess? It's like, come on, everybody, what are you guys doing out there? Come on and play some chess with us. Come on, here we got some extra boards. It's really important that we make it. I mean, I don't know. It's just a game. I mean, do you enjoy? I mean, is it important we sell more Monopoly boards or whatever, or Parcheesi or whatever games people grew up with? I don't know, Battleship or whatever. It's just a game. I mean, so in that sense, the USGA, the purpose of the USGA is to protect the integrity of the game. They're supposed to be the stewards of the game. That's what they're. That's their job. And if you look back at, I've got some old ads from television in the 70s or 80s. There was a big controversy about the ball going too far. Back in 1983, when the Titleist came out with a new ball, I don't know, it was the 384 or something that came out, and they said, and they did studies, and they said that this ball is going 2 to 3 yards farther than the old ball. And it was a big uproar about it. And they were saying, if we don't stop this right now, this is going to be very bad for the game. But now if you look in hindsight, so the longest hitter on the PGA Tour in the early 80s was a guy named John McComish, who was from Santa Maria. And he averaged 276 yards, 276. And he was the longest hitter on the PGA Tour. And that statistic now, if you average 276 on the PGA Tour, you would be the shortest hitter on the PGA Tour. The shortest hitter. So something has really, really changed. And if the goal is to protect the integrity of the game, meaning that the parameters of the game, every game has parameters. Chess has parameters. The king gets to only can move one space. The pawns can go out two and then one, and rooks and bishops go diagonal or whatever. You have these parameters that make the game. Just like basketball, the court is so many feet by so many feet, and the hoop is so high and it's so big or whatever, and that's what makes it interesting. It's the limitations that make a game interesting. I mean, if basketball, if the hoop was 4 times as big, and guys, it was just anyone that would just shoot from half court and it just, or whatever. I mean, would it be that interesting? I mean, that's
they could be making a 4-point line in the NBA,
right? Or whatever.
They're shooting farther and farther away.
And maybe that would be interesting to make the hoop bigger, make it so, maybe a guy my height could dunk it if it was half as high, and I could go up and dunk. I don't know. Maybe there's a league for that. Maybe there are leagues for that. I don't know. But I just think that golf as a game, I think that they had the parameters right. If you think about baseball, right? I mean, when they invented baseball, at some point they had to arbitrarily set where these bases were going to be, right? I don't know how many feet is it to the first base? Do you know?
90 feet.
Okay, 90 feet. All right, where did they come up with that number? But the bottom line is, when a guy hits a hard line drive to the third baseman, right? And he grounds it, picks the grounder up, and just throws it to first base. I mean, it's just a split second, right?
If he bobbles the ball one time.
Just, I mean, but between the foot hitting the bag, right, out, safe, right. So it's these parameters that people figured out back then. If it was 95 feet. It would totally change, right? I mean, it would just be they'd never get them out, or they, or whatever. It's just, I mean, they've got these things just right, and I think that they had golf just right, with 250-yard drives and all the angles. And all right, let's take Augusta for instance, because people are familiar with that. The 10th and the 11th hole, the greens are narrow, but they're deep. Okay. So they're meant to accept a low trajectory shot that would skip into those greens. But if you take 13 and 15, which are par 5s, which are almost the same length, really, those holes, okay, they're protected in the front. The greens are wide, but they're shallow. So it's very risky to come in with a low trajectory shot over water to a green that isn't that deep, but it's wide. So the shapes of the greens are designed for the trajectory of the shots coming in, where you have a great risk and reward element when you have protected in a shallow green. Am I going to go for it? I mean, I would get kind of almost a nervous feeling. I remember watching like Seve, back there hitting a 1-iron, into 15, and he's got a 1-iron. He's going to come in with this low trajectory shot. He's got to hit that thing absolutely perfect, right? To get that thing up in the air and have it come in to where it doesn't too hot, where it's skipping over the green and that sort of thing. But on the 10th and 11th holes, guys would come in with long irons, sometimes even a 4-wood, coming in a low trajectory shot. But the green is meant to accept that shot. There's plenty of depth to it to come in with a low trajectory. Right? I don't hear announcers talking about this stuff. They should, but maybe they're told not to. I don't know. But that would be just an example that I think people should be able to relate to. Just the design element, the parameters of the game, so that the player has to, make decisions about things. And are they going to go for it? Are they not? What are the risks and the rewards? But if a guy's chipping an 8-iron into 13 or 15, I mean, it's not really that exciting. I mean, they're coming in with a short iron and a high shot. It's like, who cares? It just does nothing for me to watch that. But if I see a guy with a 2-iron back there and he's got sweat coming off his brow, he's trying to win a major championship, that's quite exciting. It's really quite thrilling.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take another time out. Do you like watching golf on television?
I don't watch golf on television.
No, you can't do it.
Well, I mean,
Even the majors?
No, I don't. I can't watch the Masters anymore. I can't watch it. No.
Why?
It just does nothing for me. I
Hmm.
mean, when I look at the way those holes are designed and how they're supposed to be played and this sort of thing, it just doesn't create the tension. When I see guys hitting, like I just said, short irons into 13 and 15, it's like, what are we? Is it really? I mean, how is that? Or I'll give you another example. Let's take the 16 at Augusta, right? That Sunday pin on the back left, right? Okay. So the greens in the old days weren't that fast. I don't know if you've ever watched any of the old vintage footage of the Masters. Okay. But the greens used to putt like tee boxes now.
Mm.
Okay. So think of that back left pin on 16. What do we see nowadays? Well, if they hit it up to the right, it hits the slope and it rolls down and ends up, 6 feet from the hole, right? I mean, that's common. But where's the risk and reward there? In the old days, when that slope was slow, the ball would not roll down the slope. Okay? So, in other words, if you wanted to get it close, you had to shoot it at the pin with the water right there. And if you bailed out to the right, you had a tough downhill putt from up there. The ball didn't just funnel down to the hole. That to me just makes no sense. It takes the risk and reward out of it. I want to see the guy have to shoot at the pin, not aim to the right and have it come down. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. But I don't think it's a matter of me being a purist or some kind of old timer or whatever. It's just common sense. It's much more exciting if you force the issue. You want to get it close, you got to go at that pin. If you're going to bail out to the right, you're going to have a tricky downhill putt coming down that hill. Make sense?
Would you slow the greens?
Of course.
Yeah.
Green. Okay, these old, well, I just played Richmond Country Club. Again, the greens were like US Open fast out there the other day. I mean, they were so fast, it was absolutely ridiculous.
Yes.
And as sloping as those greens are, they never had any designs on greens ever being that fast. Mm-hmm. This whole idea of super fast greens is, I think, just really kind of against the design of these courses. They would never have made.
But with everybody hitting farther and getting farther, where the challenge is your short game and the putting, that's where you're gonna be losing strokes. If the ball and the equipment's gonna let you go farther and be more accurate, then the risk reward is going to come in your short game, getting it close, or putting on these very hard greens, difficult greens.
If you were to design greens and you knew that they were going to be super, super fast, then I think the design of the greens would be different. You wouldn't have these big severe undulations or whatever. You keep more flat type surfaces with little, subtle undulations and that sort of thing. But these old classic courses, the reason that they had these big undulations because the greens weren't that fast. Mm-hmm. So if you hit it up here on a shelf, it was a downhill putt coming down. This whole idea of just putting terror into people on a 5-foot putt or something, and if I miss this putt, there was one of the holes at Richmond. I think it was the eighth hole at Richmond Country Club, where the first half of the green was unusable. The ball would literally just roll up and then just roll back off the green. It would literally. My friend chipped the ball up to the hole. And it didn't get to the hole, and it came all the way back and went off the green. I mean, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
Why?
And we've seen that a lot this year in majors and whatnot, where the ball just, it falls right back off and rolls 40 yards away.
I played in the Australian Open. I think it was 1989 at Royal Melbourne, and Greg Norman was leading the tournament by, I don't know, 6 shots on Sunday. The wind blew so hard, it was, and the greens were so fast, it was blowing the balls off the greens. Oh. Ball was just blown up. So Greg Norman comes to the third hole. He hits a putt from below the hole. It goes up, misses the hole, and then turns and comes back farther away than he had originally putted. And you know what he did?
No.
he picked the ball up and he just walked off the course.
Off the course.
He just quit. He just said, I'm not doing this. He was leading. He's leading the Australian Open, and he just picked it up and he just left. He said, this is just silly. I'm not doing this. And what did they do? They said, Greg, what are you doing? He said, this is ridiculous. And then they're like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. It is ridiculous. So then they canceled the round and everybody played again on Monday.
Oh, and what did they do with the greens? What did they do with the pin position?
They probably watered him, to try and slow him down a little bit.
Wow.
But a lot of it was the wind. But the fact is, it just became ridiculous. I don't think golf needs to be ridiculous. Especially if you hit a good iron shot into a green. If you're back there with a 4-iron or something, you hit a shot into the back of the green and you hit it 10 feet from the hole. But, if you don't make this putt, this thing's just going to roll 20 feet past the hole. I just think stuff like that's just ridiculous. Nobody's that good that they're going to sit there from 200 yards out with a 4-iron and say, I've got to position this thing 10 and a half feet short right of the hole. I mean, if you hit it a little past the hole from 200 yards or whatever, you shouldn't be looking at some death trap putt that, you're going to just 5-putt or something. You hit the green. You know what I mean? You shouldn't.
Right.
You might have a difficult putt. Yes, it's a downhill left to right putt. It's going to be tough to make it, but you shouldn't have to worry about walking off with a bogey or a double. I think that kind of thing so that would be one of the things I would change. I'd get rid of all the nonsense out of golf, stuff like that. Just get rid of it. Tighten up the fairways. Tighten up the fairways. Make driving more. Have to hit it in the fairway. Or if you don't hit it in the fairway, I played in 3 U.S. amateurs. Made the quarterfinals, and it was 1983, Chicago. But I remember the grass was like this deep. You hit it in there.
It's like a foot deep.
It was like a foot deep. I mean, you hit it in the grass.
To your shins.
If you could, the spotter would find the ball down there, put the flag down, you get there. I mean, the first thing I'd, looked at my caddy, am I hitting wedge out of here, sand wedge, maybe a 9-iron? I don't know. I mean, I wasn't like pulling out a 6-iron thinking I'm going to get it on the green or anything. Accuracy, I think it's harder to have to hit the ball straight. So I don't understand why they're putting so much emphasis on hitting the ball far and not having a penalty for errant tee shots. I think you should have to drive the ball straight in a major tournament.
In a major tournament, yes, but not in recreational, not in amateur golf, because there are no spotters, right? You can't have tall grass and then complain about pace of play. If there's nobody going, here's your ball. Right. The marshals drive me nuts. So you've played, obviously you played, amateur golf, you played college golf, you did well. And then you made it to the tour, PGA Tour. I'm curious, what did you learn playing on the professional level that you didn't know before you got there playing in all those amateur levels successfully in the other amateur levels?
Well, the first thing I learned was there were guys that I'd never heard of that could just go out and shoot 64 on a course that was impossible. I mean, I couldn't believe the guys coming out of the woodwork. You had, when I turned pro, this would have been 1987. So all the top players from my class, were turning pro coming out of college. So you had, I still had to beat those guys that I was playing against in college, right? But now I've got to beat some guy who's been out there for 20 years, who's played this golf course. If I'm playing in the BC Open in Canada and it's my first year looking at Point Grey Country Club or whatever, trying to figure out how I'm going to play this course. And here's a guy who's been playing the same tournament for 20 years, played it 5 times. He's playing the 5 rounds on that golf course every year, right? I mean, so this guy's played this course, over 100 times, and it's like his home course,
right?
And I'm looking at it for the first time. I couldn't believe how good players were that I'd never heard of.
Wow.
So, there was an old saying that if you're going to be a pro golfer, you have to be the best player within 200 miles of where you live. For sure.
Interesting. Okay, so you learned a lot about the competition when you got up to that level. What
Oh
did you
yeah.
learn about your game?
I wasn't good enough, you know?
Hmm.
So, that's when, my big moment, I know we talk more golf here, on my site and stuff. I'm talking more swing theory and all that stuff. And, how
Right.
to, but I knew that I was playing Australian Open. I'm on the driving range at Royal Melbourne. This would have been, 1987, I think. I'm hitting balls between Greg Norman and Sandy Lyle.
Mm.
Sandy Lyle had just either won the Masters or the British Open or whatever, and Greg Norman was number one in the world. And it sounded like gunfire going off. I mean, the way they were striking the ball, I mean, it had a different sound to it. I mean, these guys were really accelerating the club and compressing the ball in a way that I didn't know anything about that. So when I came back home and worked with my teacher, I just kind of thought, this isn't working. I'm going to have to change my technique here and become more of a hitter, than a swinger. I was kind of more of a dainty sort of, swinging the club, really relaxed and sort of, had a real pretty flowing swing, and that no good. That wasn't going to work. So I had to change, and then I did, so I committed to doing that. I worked my butt off and then worked out, got stronger, just committed to it. And then I became a much better player. So I think professional golf, it made me better because I realized I had to be better, and I realized the competition was better. And it's the best thing you could possibly do for your golf if you want to become as good as you can possibly be. And if you have the fortune to get out on the pro tour and see how good those other players are, and then commit to, trying to raise the bar for yourself. And I think that's, why I became as good as I did, and why I'm even someone like you is even interested in talking to me.
When you said a moment ago, you talked about how accelerating the club.
Mm-hmm.
Now, explain the difference between accelerating the club through impact versus swinging hard.
Okay, so there's two ways to hit a golf ball. You're either what I would call swinging or hitting. Okay.
Okay.
So from a physics standpoint, I'll just make it as simple as possible. You would have, there's a difference between a momentum strike and a force strike. Okay, so one, you would have momentum would be, all right, let's say that you're going to be hitting the ball at 110 miles an hour, club head speed. Okay, so here's the ball, here's the club. Okay, momentum would be, I'm already at 110 miles an hour right here. I'm at 110. Okay, in other words, I'm gliding the thing in. I've reached maximum acceleration on the way down. I went from 0 to 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. I get to 100, 110, 110, 110, 110, 110, 110.
Okay, so you're, for the people who are just listening, when you're talking about that, you're at about 12, 13 inches behind the ball, and you've already reached your maximum club head speed.
Yeah, most people reach maximum club head speed, somewhere on the downswing. They reach their maximum speed, and then they're gliding the club in to the strike. Okay, so that's basically what those people are doing. You're going to flex the shaft at the top of the swing. You're going to flex it, okay, and then that shaft is going to unflex into the ball. Okay, in other words, you load the shaft, and then that shaft is going to kick and it's going to flex into the ball. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's swinger. Now the hitter would be saying, okay, I'm going to load the shaft, but I'm going to keep accelerating, and I'm going to be holding that shaft flex into all the way to the strike. So in other words, you're going to be picking up speed. So at 110, that same golfer would be 106, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So you're at 110 at contact.
Right. Striving for 111, 12, right? The ball is going to, obviously, the forces of impact is going to slow the club down a little bit. But the intention of the golfer is to continue to accelerate that club beyond the strike. Which you could do if you didn't have a ball there. If you just took a swing and you didn't hit the ground, like I can swing the club to where the club is moving actually faster after the low point. So in other words, I'm holding. So when I flex the shaft, I come down and I'm holding the flex of the shaft all the way to the strike, if not beyond. Now, so you would say, well, why does that matter? A lot of people would say, if you're hitting the ball at 110 miles an hour, who cares whether you're accelerating or not? Because it's the club's hitting it at 110. But here's where people are missing the point. Let me grab a pen here. Okay.
Please, for the audio audience, use your words.
Yeah.
Because I'm watching you, but no one else is.
Yeah. Okay. So if I'm accelerating the club, in other words, there's a resistance in the head. You've got the head on one end and you have your hands on the other at the shaft, right? So got the club head is on one end of the shaft and my hands are on the other. Okay. If I am pressuring the shaft through the use of my hands and my body and everything, and I'm pressuring that shaft and I'm holding the flex of the shaft back, what that does is that puts feel and pressure in my hands here. I can feel the shaft in a tangential way. In other words, a tangential way, I'm pressuring the grip and I feel it in my hands. That allows me to feel where the club face is at. I now have control of the club face. I can feel where it is. As soon as I lose that pressure, I lose shaft flex, then I've lost the pressure in my hands and I can't really tell. I don't have the accuracy to be able to tell where the club face is at. Mm-hmm. That's the secret to golf. That's it. That's a secret.
Well, now that we have the secret, let's take another time out.
All right.
This week on Golf Smarter Mulligans is part 2 of our conversation with John Novasel of Tour Tempo from 2011. These are a great pair of episodes to hear back to back because this information can really have an impact on your performance. As we learned in the last episode, Yale University researchers confirmed what John had been teaching for years, and that's a consistent rhythmic swing.
The guy had 2 bunker shots during the round after he worked with our stuff, and he hit them both within 6 feet of the pin, and they just, nice soft landing and everything. And he says his playing partners remarked on how pro-like the swing looked. and so that's the other thing that we found out for the long game, that amateurs don't swing tempo-wise as fast as the pros. And then on the short game, they swing too fast compared to the pros.
That's Golf Smarter Mulligans episode 220, featuring John Novasel of Tour Tempo in an episode we called, When Was the Last Time Someone Said to You, Nice Swing? Please subscribe for free to both of our golf podcasts. Golf Smarter, published every Tuesday since 2005, and our sister podcast that revisits the best of the Golf Smarter podcast called Golf Smarter Mulligans, being released every Friday from wherever you're listening right now. So with that last description, is that where your nickname Lag came from?
Yeah,
John Lag Erickson? Is it your putting or is it your swing?
The swing, yeah. Lag pressure is my email address, lagpressure@gmx.com, if anyone wants to email me.
Okay. Thank you. We will.
Yeah. So, but lag pressure is the pressure on the shaft. So, in other words, just think of it if you're, in a fast car, and somebody hits the gas and you feel pinned to the back of your seat, right?
Yeah.
That's what you want to feel in your hands. You want to be able to, because if your hand is pinned on the back of the club because you're accelerating, you can feel the club. Okay. The whole idea of weightlessness is that you can't feel anything. You jump off a diving board, you're free falling, you don't feel anything until you hit the water, right?
Right.
But if you're accelerating in a car, you're pinned to the back of your seat, you feel everything. So you want to be able to feel, because golf is a game of feel, you have to be able to feel where the club face is in relation to space and time. And if you accelerate too soon, you lose the pressure in the right hand and you lose the sensation of where the club face is. And that's why people hit the ball all over the place. This is a problem with the PGA Tour players on tour. Why they're, how can these guys that are out there, playing every day and they're pros and they're the best in the world, how can they be hitting a driver 50 yards offline? How can that happen? And it's very simple, because they have reached acceleration too early on the downswing because the clubs are too long and they're too light, and they lose pressure on the shaft. And when they get down to impact, they can't feel where the club face is, and the ball just goes, 50 yards offline. Where in the old game, when the heads were heavier, then if something is heavier, it's harder to accelerate it quickly, right? I mean, if something's heavy, it's just like if I were to held a bowling ball and I had it against my chest and I was going to toss it over to you, I've got to kind of push on that thing, push, and it's a slower acceleration, right? But if I had a beach ball, I could just tap it with my other hand and it would quickly accelerate over to you, just boom, right? Accelerate very quickly. So the idea of the heavier clubs was to help players feel the club and create pressure on the shaft and slow the acceleration rate so that you can bring it down to impact. You can actually feel where the club head is at impact. That's why the old time game, guys used to hit it straighter than they do now. But that doesn't work. A 250-yard drive doesn't work on a 7,500-yard golf course, right? So the young players are doing the correct thing by hitting it 350 yards because that's what you have to do when the courses are this long. And they've cut down a lot of the trees on the courses and the rough's not that high. And they're not really penalized for hitting it 50 yards offline. Didn't we just watch the U.S. Open? The guy was hitting it in the other fairway or whatever. It's no problem, right?
Yeah, right. In the middle of the trees.
So it's just a different game. I'm an advocate for the old game because I think it's a better game. It's more articulations. It's a little more of an intellectual game, I think, and it's a more equal opportunity game because if you're 5'5" and you weigh 130 pounds, you can play against somebody 6'6" that weighs 250 pounds or 275 pounds, and everyone's in the game. Short people, tall people, fat people, everybody's included.
Even ugly people?
Even ugly people.
Okay, good. I'm glad. All right, let me ask you this. As a golfer, not a golf instructor, but as a golfer,
which I am,
what is your superpower?
What's my strength as a golfer?
Yeah.
Accuracy. Hitting the ball straight. And
can you shape your shots as you need, yes, or you're always just straight?
No, I rarely ever hit a straight shot. I'm always working it one way or the other, left to right, right to left. My strength is that I have very, very, very good technique that I've worked very, very, very hard to master technique, which allows me to hit the ball straight, accurate, move the ball left to right, right to left, keep the ball in play. I played Cypress Point in January of this year, and it was only the second round I'd played in 2 years. And I went out and 20 mile an hour wind, I hit 14 greens out there.
Gee, that's incredible.
And the 4 greens that I missed, I could have easily have hit all those 4 greens. One of them, I actually hit the green and spun the ball off the green.
Oh, wow.
Another one, I was drawing the ball in from the right side, and it hit just right of the green, and it hit a soft spot and stuck. If it just bounces at all, it would have kicked down perfect to a back left pin placement. So it wasn't a bad shot. There's a lot of woulda, shouldas in golf, but I'm just giving the example. But these weren't like I really hit bad shots. I missed the green on a par 5 because my right foot slipped off the tee because I wasn't able to wear steel spikes, which is another topic. But my ball went into one of those bunkers in the fairway that I had to wedge out and hit sideways. So I usually don't miss the greens on par 5s usually, but I did in that case. And then the only other green I missed was on the 18th. I hit it about 4 yards through the fairway, and I'm down in the little swale down there trying to hit a shot up and over the cypress tree to the green. I hit a nice shot over the tree, right at the green. The wind was blowing so hard off the coast, I couldn't feel it from down where I was at. I just miscalculated. And the cypress trees are kind of stiff, they don't really move a lot. So I couldn't really see the branches moving. Didn't realize there was that much wind. The ball just took it right to the green. So those are the 4 greens I missed. And I walked off thinking, wow, I mean, I don't even play golf much anymore, but yet I could go out to Cypress Point and hit the ball this well, wind. And I mean, the 11th hole, I hit driver 1 iron into the green, onto the green. Next hole, driver 2 iron on the green. Next hole, driver 4 iron on the green. When you come straight into the teeth of the wind at Cypress, you turn the 10th hole, you come 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. You're just dead into the wind. On the famous 16th, 2-wood, boom, right over the bay, the water, I'll put it on the left side of the green. So I hit the ball beautifully out there. But I'd say that's the strength of my game, is just good technique.
Oh, now I need to talk about equipment for just a second here because I had other questions I wanted to ask, but you said a couple of things that made me want to ask. What's in your bag? What clubs do you carry in your bag?
And Mike, right now I'm hitting 1951 Tommy Armour Silver Scott irons for irons. The reason...
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9?
Yes.
Do you carry a hybrid?
No.
Do you carry fairway woods? Fairway metals?
I carry a driver. I carry a 2-wood and a 4-wood. And these are persimmon woods. So my driver is a 1956 Spalding Model 28. My 2-wood is a McGregor Tourney M85. And my 4-wood is a Super Iomatic. McGregor Velocitized persimmon 4-wood. So,
and how many wedges do you carry?
Just a wedge and a sand wedge, pitching wedge and a sand wedge.
Wow. Incredible. Okay. Yeah. Now the other question about your equipment is you mentioned that you slipped because you weren't wearing spikes. You don't wear spikeless shoes, do you?
Well, no,
you have the removable spikes.
Yeah. Just the plastic spikes are no good. I mean, not for a proper golf swing. They don't give enough traction. I mean, they give some, but not as much. I mean, if you're on something a little bit of a sandy kind of teeing area or something like that, my right foot can slip out. With the steel spikes were, long steel spikes that really just grip into the ground. It allows you to swing more in a rotational way. The golf swings have evolved a lot based upon the golf shoes. And as when the golf shoes were steel spikes and people were really rooted into the ground, you saw a lot more rotary kind of golf swings moving more level. As spikes became plastic and not as good traction, the golf swings have got more up and down, more upright, because with the rotational swings, it's harder to grip into the ground.
Fascinating.
I think the shoes are something that think about it this way. It's very strange because steel spikes are legal with the USGA. They're not illegal. They're legal. Okay. But
some courses are now asking you not to wear them.
Well, I mean, for the last 30 years, I mean, you can't show up with steel spikes.
Right.
So that's to me the same as if I went to the bowling alley and I bring my bowling shoes and they say, you can't really wear bowling shoes here.
You got to go in your socks.
But it's like, hey, but these are bowling shoes. They're legal with the United States Bowling Association. Yeah, but we don't really allow those here on our on our lanes because they just don't. They kind of they scuff up the lanes and stuff or whatever. I mean, that's how ridiculous it is to me that I can't go out, play a round of golf with steel spikes in my golf shoes because they're legal. Now, did the USGA make them illegal? No. So why can't I use them? Because some local rule, every course has a local rule that says you can't use them. I mean, it doesn't really
tears up their rugs.
It doesn't really make much sense. I mean, the footing in any sport is important.
Critical.
Whether it's basketball, football. So you need traction, and especially now because they allow the players to tap down the spike marks. So what's the problem now? See, that was the original argument against steel spikes. Oh, they make spike marks. Oh, okay, we don't want that. But now you can tap down the spike marks, but they're still. So yeah, I don't think real highly of a lot of these organizations that are in charge of stuff.
All right, let me go back to this line of questioning. As an instructor, what is your superpower?
I think my ability to take very complicated concepts and just make them simple for people. I don't believe much in these swing monitors and launch things and all that stuff. And I think the ball tells you everything. Hit a golf ball, goes over here, goes over there. I hit it fat, I hit it thin. I don't know. What is the machine going to say? Oh, the club face was open. Well, the ball told you the club face was open. I mean, it just makes no sense to me that I would need TrackMan or any of these sort of things to tell me what's happening to the golf ball. So I just get rid of all that stuff. Let's just look at, what's happening with your shot and what we need to do with your golf swing to fix things. So I just try and keep things as simple as possible. And I never want to talk over people or through people. I don't say, oh, you need to, contract this thoracic muscle or, whatever. People don't want to be talking like they're in a doctor's office or whatever, It's just, I talk, knees, hips, shoulders, head, arms, wrists, just common everyday language of people. I mean, I know a lot of that stuff, but the technical things, but people don't want to hear that.
Okay. As a competitor, as somebody who's won on the PGA Tour, as a competitor, what is your superpower?
My ability to win. When I'm playing good, I was always very confident that I could win because I'm playing good. I was never really much of a choker. I just thought, hey, I'm playing good. My problem was I didn't play good often enough. So I would get more nervous.
That's hard to do, huh?
I would get more nervous teeing off knowing that I wasn't playing well than I would if I was playing well. It's like, well, I'm hitting it good. I'm not worried about hitting this fairway or this green. I was nervous when I wasn't playing well. That's because how am I going to, pay my caddy in my hotel room and get to the next tournament? That would
All right. Last one of these prepared questions. When other instructors are in a conversation and your name comes up between them, what is it they're talking about?
What is it they're talking about?
Yeah, they're talking about you all of a sudden. You're not part of the conversation, but it's like, oh yeah, John Erickson. Oh yeah, what are they talking about?
I don't know. I was just on the PGA Tour podcast a couple of weeks ago with Mark Immelman, I don't know if you saw that.
What?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Yeah. I don't have the exclusive to John Erickson?
I thought you did. I thought I
did too.
I thought you negotiated this, didn't you? This is. But I was surprised that Mark Immelman even knew who I was or whatever. I mean, but he said
he listens to my podcast probably.
Yeah. But he said he'd been following Advanced Ball Striking, our website and stuff, going back to 2010 or something. Like he was
we were around.
Really inquisitive about all these things a long, long time ago. So you just never know really who's listening or what they're saying. I don't know. I don't know if people think I'm kind of crazy or not. I don't know. A lot of instructors are curious about what I'm doing. I see a lot of the ideas that I've had are out on the PGA Tour. Like you see these boards people are putting between their feet and that sort of thing when they're out there on the range. That I started that. I'm the one that started that right on my deck out in the back. I just cut a piece of shelf board and I was teaching the internal leg pressures and stuff. And now people are doing that out on the tour. So, Brad Hughes, who I worked with for years, and he was bringing that out to the tour with some of the guys. Now they're on the LPGA tour. They're using that thing too. So I mean, I do see some of my teaching methodologies influencing the modern game as well. So I guess that's good. I mean, obviously people are picking up on some of these things, but it's just all common sense to me. I don't think I've really invented anything. I'm just basically like, who invented Ben Hogan's golf swing, for instance? Ben Hogan did, right? If I'm trying to teach what he's doing, it's not that I invented it. I'm just trying to interpret it in a way. And that's what I've been actually working on. In the next few months, I'll be releasing a course that'll teach like what I believe was Ben Hogan's methodology on how he went about swinging the golf club. So it's quite fascinating, very, very difficult quite a responsibility too, to try and do that. But the reason I did it is I just feel like the other instructors aren't doing it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I can't tell you how many times I've had instructors on the show that said, I've figured out Ben Hogan's secret, and everybody has a different interpretation. Oh yeah. And as I've said, because I'm not a PGA professional, I'm in no position to dispute what they're saying. So I let them go. And if the audience doesn't agree, then I advise you to stick around, because next week you can have a completely different interpretation.
Well, there can't be a secret. There would have to be at least two secrets, because if you do one thing, it affects something else, right? So it can't just be one thing. If you were to say, well, Ben Hogan's secret is the way that he flattened the shaft at transition, it's like, okay, he did that, but what does that do? Well, then that opens the club face and shallows out the shaft, which means you're going to have to then turn more level and accelerate going through the strike to get the body to then close the club face up so that you're going to be able to hit the ball. So it has to be at least two things.
Yeah. Well, there's a video that's going around on social media these days from a number of years ago where Gary Player talks about when he was a young man, Ben Hogan told him something that he says that he never really understood until he turned 70. And that was about keeping the left bicep attached to your chest on your swing, not to have your left arm out too far. And Tony Manzoni, who we had on for years, he professed that as well.
Oh, I would agree with that. I teach that too. Yeah. Keep, especially, working through the strike. Yeah. You got to keep all that stuff connected, but then it's got to move all the way around and then move up too. You're trying to keep pressure on the shaft all the way. It really, you feel like you're trying to pressure it all the way into your finish. So I think that's what Gary Player would be talking about. But Gary Player had a great golf swing, very much like Ben Hogan, very similar. So I would say that he would know. Gary would know.
Advancedballstriking.com. Yep. And Advanced Ball Striking is social media to track you down. And
so I'm John Erickson,
other ways.
John Erickson on YouTube. We've got a pretty good channel, hundreds of videos on there, interesting things and conversations. And then we have an Instagram, Advanced Ball Striking on Instagram. There's things there. It all kind of revolves around the Advanced Ball Striking website. There's a great forum on there with, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of posts. It's just a forever interesting, fascinating dive to go there. That would be forum.advancedballstriking.com. And that's pretty much it. Cool. That's us for the social media.
Yeah. Well, Johnny, it's great to have you back on. I love our conversations because we don't know where they're going to go or where they're going to end up. Hopefully right next to the flag.
I like it.
All right, bud. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Fred, for having me on.
So here's a crazy yet typical story that happened to me on the course last week. On the fourth hole of one of our favorite courses, Rooster Run, with our regular group, Bill said to me, Fred, you've always hit the ball longer off the tee than any of us. But lately, you've also been hitting the ball really straight. Well, after saying thank you, I also reminded him that you never mention having lost a ball before the end of the round, or that looking at your scorecard too soon could mean trouble. And you never mention the no-hitter before the end of the game. Well, sure enough, it got into my head. Because through the next 32 holes, yes, that's the rest of that round, and over the next one, I hit a total of 6 fairways and shot 86 on both rounds. Now, 86 is nothing to complain about, I know. But when you're shooting below 85 on a regular basis, there's a couple of holes there that can be frustrating. But I was able to focus on my tempo and an external target. And this past Sunday, I hit 5 of 7 fairways on the front 9 and 4 of 7 on the back. And even the tee shots that missed the fairway didn't really miss by much. So beware. Don't let good compliments scare you away. Just say thank you and move on. This week's Golf Smarter ambassador, Blaine Porter from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Wow, that's 2 episodes in a row with ambassadors from Idaho. Thanks, guys. Anyway, Blaine chose to receive Tony Manzoni's video of the Lost Phenomenal because he opened the show. Now, for more than a year and a half, we've had golfers from all over the United States and around the world introduce each episode by sharing where they're from and where they play. And each of them have received a gift for their effort. And you can too, because there's 2 ways to choose one of 3 gifts that we have to offer. First, you can write a review of our podcast from wherever you subscribe. Or introduce an upcoming episode just like Blaine did. Blaine had already received Tony Manzoni's video of the Lost Fundamental, but you can also choose to receive a box of Odin X1 balls with the Golf Smarter logo. And your third choice is to receive a glove and glove storage compartment from redroostergolf.com. Let me say something about my Red Rooster subscription. You know, we don't get a lot of humidity here in California, so I don't go through gloves that fast. But wow, I played around this week and it was 96 degrees and we did have humidity and I was walking. And I went through a glove like I've never seen before. I was sweating a lot. So I'm so glad that my next round, I got a fresh glove ready to go because of my subscription from redroostergolf.com. Now I'm going to leave a link in the show notes and today's blog post so you can learn more about these two fabulous partners. And if you're interested and want something from us for free, send me an email and I'll get back to you with some instructions of what to do and what to say. Just write to golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com, or when you visit golfsmarter.com, click on the Hey Fred button. And please follow @GolfSmarter on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter to see our new ongoing posts of videos and articles. We're now putting up new content 5 times a week. And I'm really excited about what kind of response we've been getting, so thank you. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for upcoming episodes, please click on that Hey Fred button when you visit golfsmarter.com.